All right, year 4. This week we are looking at doing some drawing techniques. So we're working on improving our drawing skills. And this week in particular, we're going to look at drawing some different textures. So all you're going to need today is a piece of paper, a grey lead, a fine liner if you have one, but if you don't have one, you can just use a normal pen that you would write with, blue or black pen that you would write with. We would call them a ballpoint pen. So grey lead, fine liner or ballpoint pen. I'm going to use a combination of both just to show you that they both work the same. And a piece of paper. Easy, 3 things. Don't need a rubber, don't need anything else. Splendido. Let's get started. Okie dokie. So like I said, grey lead, fine liner, and if you don't have a fine liner, a blue or black pen. So like I said, I'm going to do a little bit of both. Now, all I want you to start off with doing is on this piece of paper, we're going to draw 8 boxes. I'm going to use my pen to do this. You can use your grey lead, whatever you like, but all we want to do is make them roughly the same size. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now you will know I like to spin my paper around a lot. Apologies if that makes it a little bit tricky to see what I am doing. Like I said, these don't have to be perfect at all. They just want to be roughly the same size. I'm going to leave a little gap down the bottom because we're going to write some stuff underneath. They just have to be roughly the same, not perfect. Doesn't matter if they're not perfect. All right, cool. So we've got our little worksheet to start off with, and we're going to start with using grey lead. So underneath here, I'm going to start by writing 4 things. I'm going to write hatching, cross hatching, stippling, which we learn about in year 4. You're in year 4 now. In year 2 when we talked about Monet. And the last one is shading. So I'm just going to hold that here for a second. If you want to quickly copy it down, pause me now, and then you can quickly copy those down. So we're going to draw each of these 4 things, and underneath you can maybe add in how difficult you found it, what you could maybe use it for, how hard it was, all those sorts of things. So we're going to start with a thing called hatching. Now, hatching makes a really interesting texture and can sometimes be really good for making like a toy look fluffy or something like that. It can be really good for doing things in nature like grass. So hatching is basically just drawing a whole bunch of lines really close to each other, but that don't overlap. So hatching can be diagonal like that, can be vertical, can go in any direction, and you can even do things with hatching like do some that are thick and dark and then get lighter, and you can even get further apart with your hatched lines as well. So you can go over them, and this kind of becomes a bit like shading. The most important thing about hatching though is that they don't go over the top of each other. So that would be cross hatching, which we'll go to. They can be far apart. Like I said, this is a really good texture sometimes for grass in particular, and you can even do ones that go in different directions like that and meet up, but they don't cross over each other. That makes sense, I hope. So I'm just going to fill up my little box with different ways of hatching, and I want you to do the same thing. Just have a go, have a play, have an experiment. It's all about just having a go. If you need to pause as we go along, make sure you do that. Take your time, all those wonderful things. So then we have this one here called cross hatching, and that's when they actually overlap. So this is hatching. Cross hatching is when they overlap. So if we are cross hatching, I'm going to start in one corner for me personally, and then we go in the opposite direction. So this can be really good for adding texture to drawings where you've got fabric like clothes. It can be really good for a lot of these textures are really good for when we're drawing nature. I like this one in particular for clothes. Like same with the other one, you can experiment with different weights of lines, how thick or thin they are, how heavy they are they really dark, are they really light? You can even experiment with the direction that they go in. So these ones are more diagonal, these ones are more like a grid. They can be far apart. Just experiment with your cross hatching. And if you want to be really crazy, you can even do diagonal and horizontal and vertical. So try and fill up your little box with different ways to cross hatch. Experiment with it. Like I said, it's just about learning different textures that we can then apply to our drawing in the future. Then we have stippling. Now, I'm not going to do this whole box because it would take a bajillion years if I did the whole box. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my dots in the corner, because that's what stippling is. Remember, using lots of different dots and brush. If you were using a brush, there'd be little dabbed brush strokes. But with a pencil, we're going to do the same thing. It's basically just like dabbing. So when I want it to be dark, I'm going to do lots of little dots close together. And then as I get lighter, I'm going to make my dots further apart. And I can also change how dark my actual dots are as well by not pressing as hard. So in the corner down here, I'm pressing a lot harder, whereas as I move away and get lighter. This one's really good for showing shading and for light and dark. And we get lighter and lighter and lighter. Now, I am going to eventually do this with the whole box, but I'm not going to make you watch that because that would be boring. But please have a go doing the whole box for me. So darkest to lightest, okay? Then lucky last, we're going to have a go at some shading. Now, this is the same sort of idea. We're going to go darkest to lightest, and we're going to start in one corner. So in the bottom right corner, I want you to start with your pencil as dark as you possibly can. Doesn't matter if it goes out of the box a little bit. And then go as light as you possibly can with your pencil. So this is all about controlling your pencil, controlling how hard you push, and trying to get it super, super light. So at the moment, I'm not really very happy with how much dark I've got. I'm pretty happy with my light, but I'm going to go over it again, make down here darker, and give myself some more middle tones. There we go. That's better. Ooh, beautiful. Getting there. And just have a go going from lightest to darkest. Easy. Okay? Like I said, this is just experimenting. This is just learning some new techniques. Now we're going to do the same thing down the bottom here. So I'm going to write my 4 little titles, and they are going to be, 3 of them are going to be the same. So we're going to have hatching, but we're going to do it with our pen, cross hatching, stippling, oops, spelling it wrong. And then we are going to have curvy lines because we can't really shade with a pen. All right, so if you need to copy them down, just pause it. Like I said, I'm going to use a combination of my ballpoint pen, my black pen, and my fine liner. If you don't have a fine liner, don't stress, just use a black pen. Easy. All right, pause if you need to copy them. And then we're going to do the exact same thing. Like I said, this time I'm not going to go through and do the whole box because we've already done that. So I'm going to hatch in my first one, and I'm going to have a real exploration of how different it feels and looks with this different material, this different pen. So can I make thin lines and thick lines and dark lines? Can I change those things? And yeah, I actually kind of can. So I can make it go from dark to light a little bit. I can make some thicker and thinner. And I'm going to have a little go with my fine liner as well. So I find with the fine liner, it's probably a little bit easier for me to get like really thin and much lighter lines. Remember, the thing about hatching is that we're not going to have lines that overlap. We're going to have lines on their own. Ooh, I like those ones. They're like almost kind of sketchy. All right, then I'm going to go have a go with my cross hatching. Same deal. I'm going to have a go trying to get light and dark lines. I like this sort of sketchy one with the fine liner. I'm going to go over the top and cross it. So this would make really, really cool texture for like clothing, I reckon. Can even change my direction while I'm doing it. I like this a lot. I told you that I wasn't going to do the whole boxes, but turns out I'm having fun, so I am. I like doing this sort of drawing because you don't have to think too much about it. It's just about trying something new and having a go. Okay, so now here's the tricky one, stippling. Again, I'm not going to do the whole box because it would take a million years, but I do want you to have a go at doing the whole box, and I'm going to do the whole box afterwards because I feel I love doing this. I love not actually drawing something, just having a go. So same deal, I'm going to keep my dots nice and close together where I want it to be dark. And as I get further away from that really dark section, I want it to become lighter. So I'm going to make my dots further apart, not as close together. And I'm going to try and control my fine liner or my pen to not make them as dark as well, which is a lot harder to do with a marker or a pen than it is with a grey lead. So that's why it's kind of interesting to have a go with both materials on one page. I find it really relaxing. Okay, and I'm gonna quickly have a go doing the same thing with my ballpoint pen, just so that you can see that we can easily do this with both. Ooh, I actually kind of maybe like this better. I like that I can kind of get lighter dots with this. So I can do some dots that are really dark like I could with the fine liner, but I can also do lighter ones as well as further apart. So that helps make the sort of shading of it even better, I reckon. Cool. All right, so I'm going to just mark here that I did that with ballpoint. And this one I'm going to mark that I did with fine liner. And I'm going to write that I had trouble getting light and dark dots. Whereas with the ballpoint, I liked that I could make dark and light, which I couldn't really do with the fine liner. It was much harder to make that happen. Dots for my stippling. Cool. So they're just some interesting ways to make texture. Then this last one is fun. So I think this is really good for doing like the texture of trees. So I just start with like one curvy line, and then we're going to put some lines that are close to each other. You can even fill in the gaps with other lines. This is also really good if you're like drawing water. Lots of little lines. And then you can fill up your whole little square with lots of different curvy lines that go in lots of different directions, and they can sort of meet up and interact and go over the top of each other. You can even change the direction if you want to. So sort of like how we did with the hatching, and make them go around. But yeah, I think this is really cool for trees and for water and that kind of thing. I like with this fine liner that I can do some light and some dark. This is also really good for when we do things like printmaking. So when we started doing the foam at the start of the year, these are some really interesting ways that you can get texture when we're not drawing. So you can use these techniques to do printmaking as well. But I think you can probably see how it would be super good for drawing trees. Hopefully we'll be able to do our foam prints actually. I'm hoping. It's been a long time since we started them. Yay. And they're just some different textures that we can use in our artwork. Like I said, I'm going to go back and do the stippling now. It does take a long time, but I'm in the mood, so I'm going to do it. All right. I can't wait to see how you go with this. Explore, have fun, experiment, and give it a go. All right. Good luck creating this texture example page. And I hope that you had fun experimenting with the different ways that you can make texture with different materials and the ways that you can make the same texture but with different materials and how that changes how they look. This is going to be a really helpful skill to learn moving forward into year 5 and onwards, and it really helps to improve your drawing if you can think about the different textures you can use to make your artworks interesting. Good luck with doing this, have fun, and I will hopefully see you really soon. Goodbye!